I'm Dr. Deb Butler, and you are listening to Thinner Peace in Menopause and Beyond. This is episode number 509. Stay tuned. Well, hello, all my dear friends all over the world, and Happy New Year 2026. And in Chinese medicine, 2025 was all about the snake and shedding your skin. And 2026 is all about the horse. So, for those of you who know anything about this, for those of you who know nothing about this, anything that wasn't working for you in 2025, it's time to shed it. And in 2026, it's time to get on a horse and ride away. So, it's like, what do you want? What do you want to run for? The year of the horse. Which kind of brings me to what I want to talk about today, being a new year. And I thought I'd like to do something a little bit different in my 9 years of podcasting. So, most of these years have been all about me and telling you all about the different ways that can become more peaceful in your mind, in your body, with food, and in your life. And I've interviewed many, many of my clients to help you understand how the thinner peace process works. I've given you tips and tricks on how you can become more peaceful in your own body. And this year, I want to start educating you a little bit more with experts in the field who resonate with my thinner peace process. So, the reason that I came up with all of this is because I learned about a specific doctor. Her name is Dr. Laurie Marbas, and she's a little bit different than most doctors I've come across, and she has a different approach. And so I thought, what a great way to start out the new year than with a doctor that thinks differently and has a different way of really looking at health. So, I'm going to introduce to you Dr. Laurie Marbas today, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. And I'll tell you what, I could go on and on. There's a lot about her, but I'm going to give you some of the big points about her. And then I want you to hear this interview that I did with her that I think will help you understand your body better and why you do what you do, because this doctor is all about habits and how to change them. So, Dr. Laurie Marbas is a double board certified in family medicine and lifestyle medicine. And like you'll hear in the interview, I don't know if I've ever even heard about lifestyle medicine, but I love the idea of lifestyle medicine because I think the only way to really be healthy and peaceful is to be able to help your whole lifestyle, not just what you put in your body. She's also the co-founder of Culinary Healing with Chef Martin Oswald, who is a doctor and a chef and collaborates and focuses on practical, enjoyable recipes of health. She's also the host of the Habit Healer podcast, which is centered on compassionate, sustainable, and habit change. She's got her MD and her MBA from Texas Tech, and she's the recipient of the Gold Headed Cane Award for Excellence in the Art of Medicine and Patient Care. And that's just to name a few things. I could go on. But the reason that I decided to interview her today has a lot to do with her lifestyle medicine technique and also the idea of how little changes or changing habits a little at a time can make big changes in your overall lifestyle and in your overall health. She's also certified in all 50 states and does concierge medicine. So it's like, sounds kind of interesting, doesn't it? Like maybe the kind of doctor you might want. But anyway, whatever you do when you listen to my interviews in this new year, I want you to listen to this expert, not just on medicine, but also how to change those little habits that could make big changes in your health and in your life. So, whatever you do when you listen to my podcast, take a bath like I do, take a walk like I do sometimes, or maybe you're just driving, whatever it is you do, sit back, relax, and I want to educate your brain with Dr. Laurie Marbas. Enjoy. Hello, Dr. Laurie Marbas, and welcome to my podcast.
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm excited to be here. So thank you for inviting me.
Oh, what I was telling you and what I want my listeners to know is that you're the first expert that I've had who I think is so aligned with what I do, who's in medicine, who can really help people understand the things that I already talk about the mind and the body. But you
Mm.
have a different approach, and I think it could help my listeners so much and help me too.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to share. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
So one of the things, and people already know who you are because I've already introduced you. But what really interests me is I know you're double certified in family medicine, but you
Mhm.
also, which really intrigues me, is this whole idea of lifestyle medicine that you're
Mhm.
cert what is that? And what does that mean?
So lifestyle medicine is a new branch of a specialty, right? So basically you first have your primary specialty. So you come out of medical school and you do, a 3 to 5 year specialty like family medicine is for me,
Yeah,
internal medicine, whatever. And then beyond that, you can do other things. So maybe someone in internal medicine goes into cardiology.
right.
For myself, what I found is that because I was focused on health and really looking into the habit piece and the behavior piece,
Yes.
I stumbled upon many years ago, as probably, gosh, 10 years ago or so, when I first stumbled upon lifestyle medicine. It was a much smaller movement then. Like you'd go to a conference, there'd be like 200 people there, you knew
Yeah,
everybody. And now there's like 2,000 people there, and people like they're out, it's like it's just a very different world now. But basically, it's centered around principles of lifestyle. And so they look at the data across populations where they're actually healthy. And they come up with 6 principles that if you follow these, and kind of like you said in some of your podcasts, it's simple doesn't mean it's easy, especially in today's world. It's focusing in on a few different ones. Is that you want to eat a nutritious diet. Of course, that means more plant forward, a lot of fiber, those good things, knocking out those ultra processed foods, and that in and of itself could be a specialty, of course. And
yeah.
then we talk about movement, right? And what does the exercise outlines, and where in movement is that really helpful? And then we think about sleep regulation and optimization of sleep, because so much happens within our sleep, and people understandably, especially if you kind of get into the habit of sleep is the first thing that you dismiss when you're busy or you need to stay up late, kids are doing whatever. Avoidance of toxins like alcohol and smoking, of course. And so then we're also thinking about connection. So that really important piece around community and building and understanding that people in our lives and how we respond to each other is such an important piece of our lives, right? So if there's a loneliness epidemic in this world, and it's unfortunate. We're hyper connected, but we're lonely. And the last piece is around stress regulation, right? And understanding how stress really interferes with our health, interferes with our relationships, interferes with sleep. So I think the way I approach it is when I work with patients or write about articles on Substack or whatever, is really understanding that there's usually someone will come in one lever, but once you get one lever kind of starting and
Mhm.
you get those little habits going, many times it's easier to kind of ripple into the other principles and start making, movements in those others as well. And it just snowballs. And so that's how I've seen it work with thousands of patients over the years. But yeah, that's lifestyle medicine in a nutshell.
I really did not know about that.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
so when people come to you now, you do telemedicine.
I do. I'm licensed in all 50 states and DC.
Amazing.
But I
Amazing.
have very recently stopped accepting patients. I have almost 500 patients. I'm a little overwhelmed. I do have a doctor that I'm referring who's a very dear friend who's also lifestyle medicine, has her own lupus journey. She's phenomenal, Dr. Chris Miller. Um, but I've been referring to because I literally when I'm booked out till February now, and I have an obligation to take care of those who are under under my care now. So I may open up later, but right now I'm just a little overwhelmed
Uh-huh.
with my patients that I do have, because I really try to do my best to take care of them best I can. So
Well, that's probably why you're got so many patients is because you work so hard at taking care of them
yeah,
and they know it. And we live in a world where sometimes doctors don't do that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so it's wonderful to know that you're that kind of doctor, but not so wonderful to know that they're going to hear this and then
yeah.
they're going to want you. And then, and then we're saying, but you can't talk to her.
Yeah, well, if you're in the Boston area, my daughter's a physician. She's a family med physician who's is very strongly aligned. Her name's Emily Marbas. So if you're in the Cambridge, Massachusetts area, she sees patient, and so she's just starting out in her little. She's just a baby doctor, but she's fantastic. So
Amazing.
have
Just
fun.
really,
Yeah,
truly amazing. Okay.
yeah.
So if people can't see you, then the most important thing at this point, well, number one, they can sign up for to
Substat.
on Substack.
Yeah,
And we'll
yeah.
put
And
that in our notes so that
thank you.
you can read, they can read what you have to write and they can learn a lot from you that way.
Yes, Substack has taken over my life. I spend a lot of time in research and trying to translate the science into really easy to follow habits so that someone understands, oh, yeah, I read about this article that I should be doing this, but how does that really affect me in my life? Like, how can I actually do it? And first, I want to only translate the science that actually is effective, right? So maybe people have heard they should be doing something, but
Exactly.
actually the data is not that strong that it's actually helpful in humans, right? So that's the other piece that's really important. So I spend way too many hours, probably, as per my husband and family would say,
Yeah.
that but I love it. It's so much, it's so fascinating. It is so fascinating. But anyway, yes, Substack, the habit healers. So thank you.
The Habit Healers.
Yes, ma'am.
I love the name. Everybody that's listening,
Yeah.
Habit Healers, this will all be in the notes, but I love the name and I want to talk about habits. So you're bringing
Yeah.
me to because we talk about habits and I just think of the wiring of the brain. The brain does what
Mhm.
it does. And the more you do what you do, the more your brain helps you do what you've already been doing, whatever it is.
Mhm.
So to me, when you talk about healing habits,
Mhm.
I think about rewiring the brain.
Mhm.
Kind of the
Mhm.
same thing, different ways of
Mhm.
talking about it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, um, one of the things that I heard you talking about, and since we're talking about habits, and I loved what you said, so maybe we can just start talking about this is your 10 healthy habits for aging well, because we're talking to people who are in their 50s, probably, maybe
Mhm.
40s, and 60s and 70s and 80s, but
Mhm.
mostly in the 50-year-old area because of menopausal things. So,
Great.
why don't you start informing us
Yeah.
about how we can rewire our brains so that we can not only age well, but be proactive.
Yeah, so I think there's a few things to understand. So you're referring to an article on Substack. It's actually my most popular Substack. It has
I
right
don't
as a
I don't doubt it.
yeah, it was over 7,000 likes. It's been shared over 1,100 times, almost 1,200 times.
I
It's a
do.
date.
I understand why. I do.
But it's interesting. So I put that article out in March because I hadn't even been writing on Substack a year. It'll be January, it'll be a year. And I was sitting one day and I really try to allow myself to be open to ideas and inspirations because I feel they're here for a reason. There's something beyond me that's saying, "Hey, pay attention." I'm like, "Okay."
I
I'm
love
like
that.
easily led.
I
And
love that.
there was a patient that I had when I lived in Rifle, Colorado. Yes, it's a town named after a gun. There's a story behind it. If it's true, I don't know. But
That's funny.
you can imagine if you live in a town called Rifle, Colorado, up in the Rockies, that you're going to get some really interesting patients, right? And this one in particular, she was in her 70s and she'd come in once a year unless she had been injured or something. But she was like business from here up, like beautiful hair done, all her makeup, and then she had on her. She always had, one of those shirts, like the Wrangler shirt, her Wrangler jeans, her boots, and full, full mud clad. And she came in one day and I was like, "How are you doing?" I always like talking to her because she's full of energy, always positive. She goes, "This morning I was digging post holes." I was like, "So like you're doing what?" She goes, "I was digging post holes." I'm like, "You're digging post holes," and I was like, I've dug postals because I grew up in a home where you did everything, and we put up fences and stuff, and so basically these things, I don't know if you guys have ever seen them, but they're like imagine two,
I think I
like at
know
the
what
end
you're
of a
talking
rake.
about.
They're two things like this, and it looks like it's hard to explain, but it's like it opens up and you push it down and you squeeze it and you pull it out. It is a lot of work. You have to get into the ground, squeeze it, pull out the dirt, and you're digging the postals. And she's like, if you ever been on a ranch, she's on a ranch, and she's just like, I'm just doing it line after line because I don't remember what happened to, I don't know if a tree fell over or whatever. But anyway, she's telling me about her digging postals, and I'm just sitting here going, here's this woman in her mid 70s digging postals, and she's awesome. She's so healthy. And that inspired this. I was like, there, and as I looked back over time, because I've been a doctor now for over 20 some odd years, and I look back and I go, wow, there's definitely some, common threads in those who age well. So that's really where this started. And it started with the first one, seeing that aging really is a privilege and not a curse. And as I get older, because I'm 55 now, and I'm like, yes, that definitely makes a sense because
I love
it
that.
really is so important. So I usually tell folks, we need to embrace it. There's some amazing things that you can happen. And what is cool about social media is you can see some incredible people who are starting older about taking care of themselves.
That's
They
right.
start exercising. It's beautiful. So I call it instead of birthdays or milestones of mastery because every year you gain wisdom, right? You've learned something. And if we focus in on that, and I know it can be a struggle for some people who are really struggling with frailty and things, but that's where the other habits come in, right? We start small and we start building strength and we start really focusing in because that positive perspective is so, so important. It
Absolutely.
literally dictates the quality of your life. And regardless of whatever your challenges are. The next habit was really understanding they move daily and they date, and I'm what I mean by daily with purpose, right? So they don't, like I was mentioning, excuse me, my nose is running. My rancher patient, right? She didn't go to the gym, but she was moving every day,
Yes.
digging pulse. It still cracks me up.
I know,
Just
but
digging holes.
still.
It's incredible, but they're consistently moving. That's the main thing. And it's not even necessarily that they have to go to the gym, but although with modern life, because of our schedule dictates that we're still a lot of the time because we're in front of computers or whatever,
Mhm.
they are moving daily. And a lot of things that I talk about is when we should be moving, how often we should be moving. Even small movement makes a big difference if it's frequent throughout the day. And so, moving with purpose, and they really think about muscle over weight, right? And so when we prioritize our muscle, which is our metabolic engine, right? This is such an important piece to understand. The more muscle that you have, you're less frail, right? You're less likely you're going to fall. And your metabolism, meaning how well you make or use the energy that you have available to you, like with glucose or fat, you become much better at using that. And when you're at rest, you're burning more calories, if that makes sense, right? Because your
Sense.
more muscle is a very expensive tissue to have, right? It's very metabolically active, kind of like the brain is. And so when you focus in on muscle and understand that that should be your priority above all else, everything else falls into place, right? Your movement, your strength, your confidence in the world, because now one, you're going to feel better, your energy improves. And when I have tons of patients who wear what we call continuous glucose monitors.
Yeah.
When they look to see their blood sugar is elevated, when they do resistance training versus just aerobic, and trust me, both are important when
Yeah.
they versus a walk or something else. The resistance training will recruit more of that glucose in by itself versus the aerobic training.
Fascinating. That's
So that really is helpful. And the next time you do your aerobic, because you now have more muscle, it's even better. So you become more insulin sensitive, such an important piece.
Mm.
So really pay attention to, if you can, resistance training of some sort. The other thing is really eating for longevity and focusing on those things that are so important to promote health, right? Not just to lose weight in the short term. And
Exactly.
so many women, this is kind of it's kind of like you'll see a mouse running on a hamster wheel or a hamster on a hamster
Yeah.
wheel. It's like they just can't get off, right? They jump off and then they get back on it, but it just leads nowhere. And so when we focus on really paying attention to longevity, this is the whole nutrient foods, right? And I lean towards more plants, but if that means whatever that means for you, but as long as it's more whole foods, right?
Right.
Where you don't need a chemical degree to read the label and go, oh, I don't understand the last 6 ingredients. Maybe I should put that back on
You
the
should
shelf.
be able to pronounce them.
Yes, and if it can last more than a week, it's probably something you don't want in there. So not everything's like that, like dried beans and stuff like that, but just something to be thinking about. And then protecting your brain, right? Because you may lead a long life, but if your brain doesn't come with you, that's going to
Yeah.
be a life that's going to be more less quality, right? At least in my opinion.
Yeah.
So challenge our mind, right? So things come instead of saying, "Oh, feel it, worry for myself, and I'm so sad because I can't do this." Like, what
Yeah.
can you do? Challenge yourself within your limits, and you may be surprised to learn that your limits will grow. And so maybe it's learning a new language, maybe it's playing an instrument, maybe it's doing Sudoku puzzles, maybe it's I don't know, crocheting, maybe it's painting, drawing, anything like that will help stretch your mind, right? The creativity, the curiosity. This will create more space and margin in life because it brings joy, you're calmer. So many things ripple just by saying, okay, what can I do today? The one thing I can do today to help heal my brain or make my brain grow. What is the one thing I can do? And it could start small. It doesn't have to be huge. And so that's one thing. Second, six, I guess we're at number 6 here, is they have a purpose, right? To get out of bed. Really. And I will tell you, I have a story quickly. I had a patient one time, because when I have patients, I have them fill out an intake form. And one patient, I always ask, what are your values? And what is your goals?
Great
And
question.
I actually had someone tell me, I don't know what my values are. I never thought about it.
Mm.
And I was like, how could someone go through life and not understanding what their values are? Because they allowed others' values to dictate their life. That's the
Yeah.
only thing that I can think of, right? And so really understanding what is it that makes you, drives you, right? What is, especially as we get older, when our kids are gone, because I know when all my kids, grew up and to do their own thing, how dare they? It's like,
Right.
that means you do all this work and now you're just leaving me?
Isn't that something? That's shocking.
It's amazing.
How could
And then
they
you go
leave?
far away? Jeez, rude. Anyway, so
Yeah.
when you're sitting here and you're like, because so many of us focus in on family or career maybe
Right.
or relationship, we get to this point in our lives, and there was something very special after going through menopause. You're just like, I'm kind of done with this. I'm just gonna do what I want, and this is so freaking
Exactly.
absolutely
Exactly.
lovely. Yes, yes, yes. So, what is your purpose? For me, I'm moving away from being the one-on-one with my doctors, and now I want to do education, right? I want to educate the general populace on what their body is and the important things you can do on a day-to-day basis, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. But where does medicine come in, intersect with lifestyle, right? And so there is a place for both. I tell people, when I first came out of medical school, I had a limited toolbox because I only took what medical school brought to me in my residency. Lifestyle medicine and experience brought those other two things, where some other things. So now my toolbox is broadened, and I would never use one over the other. Right now, lifestyle is always foundational, but sometimes you need medicine, and sometimes medicine needs to be acutely added to save a situation. And so it's malpractice to think that you can do either or. They have to be merged together, in my opinion. The other thing is stress. Really just understanding, kind of like you speak to, understanding why you have an emotion and how you're feeling it, right? So it's managing that stress and knowing there's so many ways to relook at it. And it's really that stress response is a habit, right? And how we think about how we learned or we watched someone respond to trauma, or we saw someone respond to anger with anger. We've learned these responses, and it means that you can unlearn them and learn new ones. Like there's an entire new life. You just have to make a different decision. And it literally is a decision. And once you realize you have that freedom and luxury because you are your own agent, right? You get to decide what you get to do. It is quite freeing. And it can start with just noticing the emotions that swell up, right? You're stepping back instead of being swept away and not being present in the moment. It's learning. It's mindfulness, right? You speak about that. Mindfulness in the moment is so powerful. And then nurturing relationships, so very important. Especially those ones that we kind of take for granted. We really need to understand, who's your ride and die, who's your ride or die, and who's going to be there for you regardless of the situation, not just when it's convenient or helpful for them. And those are the individuals that you need to cultivate and really put your energy into. And you don't need to have a lot. one, two, three people in your life that are just really those individuals. Could be family, it could be your friends, it could be whomever. But just understand that energy, it requires energy. Like my husband will tell you, we've been married almost about how many years? 33 years. And
Congratulations.
it takes a lot of energy,
You're
right? It's a lot of communication and respect and openness.
Mhm.
And then really the last two really, I think sleep is
Oh, yes.
by far, if I would tell you, sometimes I think there's three main levers that I work with people.
Mhm.
Well, four, but three that I try to make them at least think about using first is food, sleep, and movement. So one of those are easier for some people to enter into.
Mm.
Sleep sometimes is the biggest one because they're not getting enough sleep. They are tired, they're going to make poor food decisions, and they're going to be more stressed. More stress means more difficulty with family and relationships. But if I can get someone in, half an hour or 1 hour more of quality sleep just by changing a few habits and helping them understand circadian rhythms and what your body's doing and what it needs, this is quite powerful because now they understand there's some things that they can do. Now, there are some chronic insomnia. That's a separate issue, sleep apnea. There's obviously some medical interventions that will need to occur for some individuals. But many of it is just that we're circadian misalignment, right? We're doing things outside of the way we were built. Believe it or not, we're humans and we're animals and we're tied to this thing called Earth. So
We are.
we think we're separate, like we're some autonomous
Uh-huh.
being running around. But no, we still have things, where the light indicates in the morning, tells our little pineal gland, okay, in about 15 or 16 hours, I'm going to need to start releasing melatonin, which is a signal to start getting to sleep. Now, melatonin doesn't make you sleepy, it's just a signal to start the cascade of events that put you
Mhm.
to sleep. And so, again, I could talk about that all day, but the next thing is the last, and I think is honestly the most helpful for people is staying curious and open-minded. So I tell people I'm a skeptic, but I'm an open-minded skeptic, right? So I'll
That's
take it and I will listen. But at the end of the day, you know, not only maybe what the science says, but I'm also open to understanding experience because I feel like the materialistic view of things has its limits, and then we have to look at the experience of individuals as well. So I'm really fascinated by the all of it together. And so always curious, always looking, how can I reach more people? What are people saying? And how can I grow, right? How can I be better than I was today
mm,
or yesterday?
mm,
And that's really, really key. So if I feel like those are the ways people live, they typically are the people that you enjoy being around. They're the people that you enjoy having conversations with.
yeah.
People are sitting and actually listening to you, right? They're making eye contact and you're like, wow, they're not just thinking about the next thing they want to say.
Mm.
These are the people that I've like my patient in Rifle, Colorado, who
Yeah.
dug postals and just was so delightful to speak to. So yeah, those are the 10 habits of people who age well, in my opinion.
Well, if you could talk a little bit more, you said the three most important are food and sleep and movement.
I would say the most important in the sense that I think these are the three biggest levers that people can move that will affect the others. Now, each person may be able to enter, maybe they want to enter food first, maybe they want to enter movement first, or maybe they want to enter working on their sleep first. So we look as like, which one of those categories do you feel like if we were to break down some very simple, tiny habits
Yep.
that you'd be able to make the movement in that would allow you? For example, I had a patient, this was probably 10 some odd years ago or more. No, it must have been even more than that. Anyway, it's okay.
I'm flying.
As the time is flying, it's like, wow, that was really a long time ago. Um, anyway, so I'm always talking about, she was a type 2 diabetic. She's in her mid 60s, raising her granddaughter by herself, working
Mhm.
full time, highly stressed, not well, obviously with medications and such. And every time I saw her, I just, there's some patients that when you see their name on your roster, you're just like, whew, this one's going to take, you almost have to brace yourself, right? Because it takes a lot of energy because you want to help people as much as you
Course.
can. But sometimes you feel like your conversation just hits a wall. They're just like there just to check off a box. And it's unfortunate. And this was
Mhm.
kind of one of those individuals. And so every time I'd ask her about eating better or doing stuff, she's like, I don't have time. Just give me medicine, get
Yeah.
out with it. And so this time I was like, I'm thinking about this a little differently. And so I was like, okay, what can we do? Because I was trying to like, maybe I'll focus in on movement. And she goes, when I asked her about exercise, she goes, listen, Dr. Marbas, I am tired. I don't have time. I've got to work. I got to raise this kid.
Yep.
She's just like, why are you even talking to me type of thing.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, listen, hear me out. I said, okay, when is the only time you're outside? Or when is it a time that you're always outside? She goes, when I get in my car to go to work and when I come home and get out of my car to go back in the house. So then I can start the next shift of my work, which is basically taking care of this kid. And, you can kind of feel it. It's almost like one of those rebellious teenager conversations. And you feel it, the tension. I was like, I should not be the parent here, but this is weird sounding. But I'm going to work with this. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I can do that. I was like, can you do me a favor? I was like, when you pull into your house in the evening and you open your door, you're in your driveway. Could you walk to the end of your driveway back? And she goes, yes. Why? I was like, the door has cracked open. Yes. Now it's the small hinge, big little open. It's like, oh, you let me in. Now we're gonna let me in. Now where are we going? And I was like,
yeah.
and so I was like, I just want you to get into the habit of moving. And I say, that's all you have to do. I just want you to walk to the end of your driveway and back. And she goes, are you serious? I was like, absolutely serious. And now in my head, I was just trying to get her to move and to make it so where it wasn't offensive to her, where she would push away. Because I had parented enough teenagers to understand sometimes you have to change how we speak and communicate. And I didn't quite realize I was tapping into something about going below the mind's resistance, right? And so now that I dove deeper into the science of habits, because that was kind of, I'd always kind of walked around it and understood it. But as I was using these techniques with patients and seeing what worked, and then I read about it, the actual science, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. And so what ended up happening was, of course, we probably know where this is going. And she walked to the end of her driveway. And then one day she's like, this is ridiculous. I can walk around the block. Oh, but I must say, before she left that day, I was like, do you pinky promise me? And we literally pinky promised in clinic. I was like, she's like rolling her eyes at me by the time this point was there. She's like, I can't believe I just pinky promised this doctor to walk to the end of my driveway. Anyway, so she walked to the end of her driveway and back. Before you know it, she's like, I can walk around my block. She walked around her block. 1 block turns to 2 blocks, 2 blocks turn to 3, yada yada. Over time, 1 mile, 2 miles. And guess what happens when you start exercising? Your stress improves. Exercise improves mood. Guess what? Your medications need to come down because you're moving. You need less medications because you're becoming more sensitive. And guess what? You have more energy. You're sleeping better. You make better food choices, right? Your relationships improve. And before you knew it, she's lost 60 pounds. She's reversed her type 2 diabetes and she's an entirely different person just because she decided one day to walk to the end of her driveway and back. And that, my friend, is how we start. And so that's where I say those seem to be the 3 levers. Sometimes it's stress, but stress is so tied to the others. So I say like,
it is.
Yeah, I just like, let's talk about food. Let's talk, and sometimes that's too hot of a topic, and that's okay. Talk about movement seems to be the least egregious, or sleep, because people are really, really want more sleep because they know with better sleep they get more energy. But those 3 are the biggest levers because if I can get one moving in the right direction, many times the others will fall into place much easier.
Absolutely, I can see your point, and I even think, like, in the process that I use, and when I talk about movement, I don't even call it exercise, I just call it play.
Yeah.
Because when we were children, we did not go and say we need movement, and we did not say I should go exercise. We just wanted to go out and play, and our parents just wanted us to go out and get rid of all that energy, which was called playing.
Right. Absolutely.
Right? And so it's like, when you think about it, now your patient probably couldn't take her to play because
she's like,
wouldn't have opened up the door for you.
Right.
But the other thing that I talk about I just talk about the minimums. It's like you can do a little and not a lot because I think the thing that takes you away from ever doing anything is making it too big.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And I think that's what, at least a lot of the women that I work with who are smart and they're go-getters, they set big goals.
Yeah. Yeah. And many times they are doing fabulous, like let's say in their careers, and then they can't figure out
Exactly.
why they're struggling with their weight. She goes, I don't understand why everything else in my life is fine, except I cannot get my health under control.
I
And I
would
was
say
like,
I hear that all the time.
exactly. And I was like, well, what would you advise someone who comes to you about career advice? What would you tell them?
Ah,
And it's like, so let's flip that back on yourself, right? And so once they understand, now they're thinking like they would be thinking to a friend, right? Or to a colleague that was
love
asking
it.
for. And once they do that, they're like, oh, well, I'm like, well, tell me what you would say. What is that language that you understand that you are using? It's not me. I'm just pointing you in the right direction, right? So I can tell you what habits work. I can tell you about the science of habits. But at the end of the day, if it's not working for you, you're not going to do it. So I need to understand what you desire because we all have our different things that, make us happy or we enjoy. And so again, I just get joy out of watching people succeed and whatever that might be. Oh,
Yeah,
it's so much fun.
it is so much fun. And so when we talk about movement as being one of those levers,
Yes.
and a lot of the our listeners that are listening today are menopausal,
Oh,
and they've been struggling with weight their whole life, and
yeah.
menopause is making it harder than ever.
Yes. Yes.
And if we were talking about that lever for movement,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what might you say? And we don't know them personally, and I know you like to work personally,
Mm-hmm.
but so many people are also so much the same.
Oh yeah. Well, I write my articles are for everybody.
Of
Yeah.
course, of
Yeah,
course. So what would
absolutely.
you say to the woman that's listening to us right now when it comes to they have always thought they should,
Mm-hmm.
and they always have big, grander ideas that they will,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
but they aren't?
Yeah. So this gets back to I'm so this year, early this year, I had a literary agent reach out to me from the UK. And so I've signed with her. I'm working on a book proposal called Healing Habits. It may change, but I'm it's Healing Habits, right? Because
Such a great name.
it is honestly, this is all I speak about. It's literally all I speak about.
I
And
love yeah, I think
yeah,
it's a great name for a book.
my little mantra is like you're always one tiny healing habit away, right? So you're one tiny healing habit away from doing something big. And so
Okay.
I think the easiest way to address your question is to tell another story. Because many times people will, I can tell you, you need to do 150 minutes of this, and that. You need to do this, that. But if I tell you a story, you'll walk away from this podcast and go, I remember someone just walked down to the end of the block and they lost 60 pounds, reversed their diabetes. And now I'm going to tell you a
Right.
story. I'm going to tell you a story about the patient who happened. This was, I don't know, 2 years ago. So it wasn't that long ago. Um, and she was also dealing with different things, also in her early 60s. And we were working on movement, especially and specifically strength training, right? Because again, remember we talked about earlier is that your metabolism improves with more muscle mass, right? So the more muscle mass you have, the better metabolic engine you have, the less frailty you are. You're going to walk through this world. So how can we build more muscle and not be overwhelmed? Like I don't want to go to the gym bros and those scare me. And let's start small. So what this patient did, I asked her, I was like, what do you do every single day that regardless of where you are, if you're in the middle of the Amazon jungle, that you would do? She goes, I would drink my coffee. I'm like, okay, let's talk about drinking coffee. And by the way, coffee is good. It's very good. I wrote an entire article about coffee recently, but I was like,
Yay!
and I was like, what are you doing while the coffee's brewing? And she goes, I'm waiting for the coffee to brew. And I was like, excellent. And she's like, where is this going? I was like, can you do 2 push-ups on the counter? And she goes, 2 push-ups on the counter? I was like, yeah, do 2 push-ups right now. So she does 2 push-ups on the counter. Can you do that every morning? And that's it. And she goes, you just want me to do 2 push-ups in the morning while my coffee's brewing? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, okay. Now, granted, this is telemedicine. I can't pinky promise at this point.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm putting it in your chart. And if I put it in your chart, that means you have to do it, right? She was like, oh, yeah, I can do 2 push-ups on the counter when my coffee's ready. So what have I done here?
Yeah.
We have a cue in her routine that's never going away. It's like brushing your teeth. It's like getting up in the morning and going to the bathroom. It's like whatever that routine for me, it's walking every morning. I've been walking every morning for, over a decade. And so, like, I don't care where I go. I don't know wherever I am, I have to walk in the morning. For her, it's brewing coffee. So this is your anchor habit, right? This is your routine. Now what we're doing is we're tying a tiny new habit to this anchor. So what this anchor habit's turning into is the cue and this new habit structure that we're building. So in a habit loop or habit structure, you have a cue, which tells you, triggers you what to do. You have the behavior, the 2 push-ups on the counter, and the reward, very important, is you have to create this reward circuitry in your brain. So you get a little hit that's like, ooh, I like it. That good feeling, exactly, those little good feeling hormones that are going, whoa, I like it. So one thing is, as she's doing her 2 push-ups on the counter, I was like, I really want you to say, yeah, I did it. Now, what's happening over time, in 2 months' time, actually, with this patient, she came back and we were talking about her other things because there was a long list of things to deal with. And she's like, Dr. Marbas, you have not bothered to ask me about my push ups. Like, I was like, oh, well, excuse me, tell me. She goes, I can do 60, and that's a 6 and a 0. I was like, what? She goes, I can do 60. And she goes to proceeds to show me her guns. So guns meaning, guys, it's your biceps. You know, when you grow up, if you ever had teenage boys, you know what your guns are. And so literally in a matter of months, she went from just doing two to 60. I was like, I'm pretty sure you could do some on the ground now, or like, I don't, I like, I feel like you probably should challenge yourself. I ask anyone, go do 60 even on the counter. Just try it. You're going to be like, holy mackerel. Now, this is the same thing with compounding, right? Just like interest in a bank account, you get compounding of these little things. It's like you're greasing the groove, like you talked about, like the brain, the more you do it, the more circuitry is just getting laying down the tracks over and over and over. So we're just building this new habit. So every time she drinks her coffee or sees the coffee brewing, she's doing her push-ups. And then one day she's like, 2, I can do 3. I could do 4. I could do 5. You know, she's just building up as she gets stronger. And before you know it, she's doing 60 and getting muscles and looking sexy, right? So this is the important piece here that we need to understand. That's how you build this, right? We come in under the radar of resistance and start small. You build it. And before you know it, you're so excited that you get to tell people I can do 60 push-ups, and they're like, what? And so how fun is that? And so literally the push-up habit with her coffee became her healing habit. And guess what? Medicine's improved. She's doing more. She has more confidence. She's like, I could do other types of exercises, squats. I could do, maybe I'll go to the gym. Maybe I'll get a personal trainer. Who knows? The sky's the limit. Because if you open up that door saying, I can't do it, like you changing their belief structure, saying, yes, you can.
Yes.
And when they see that they can, we're changing their identity. And so now that little behavior literally changed her identity to someone who can do it and has done it. There's the evidence is right there. Amazing.
Amazing. Amazing. So I think anybody that's listening to this right now probably has a couple really good ideas for themselves. Because number one, there's probably a lot of people that like to make coffee in the morning.
Yes.
So I think it's a wonderful example for what you can do in between making your coffee and waiting to drink it.
Yes, 100%.
And so I think that's really like a clue because most people don't like to do things that they don't want to do.
Right.
And
Right.
what I hear you saying is these people get better because they want to do more. They're not being forced to do it. They want to because they started at something that was easy enough, like you said, under the radar.
Yep. Exactly.
So I know our listeners will get something from this.
Yep.
So what about sleep? Because we have our menopausal women who are having trouble sleeping anyway.
Yeah.
Or not everybody, but some or most.
Yeah.
What could we address there? Because we know that's going to help stress. We know it's going to help them make better choices with food when they know what they need to eat, but they don't make that choice. So, what's a habit?
So many.
Uh,
I think first of all, it's a change in your perspective of when your preparation for sleep starts.
Okay.
So a lot of people think, oh, I need to work on my nightly sleep habit routine, and which you do. But I'd rather you start thinking about your sleep routine in the morning. Okay, so when
Ah,
you wake up in the morning, the first thing I need you to think about is I need to get natural sunlight into my eyes within an hour of awakening. And so what's happening here is you're setting off a cascade of hormones, including the melatonin that you naturally make in the pineal gland in the middle deep part of your brain. Because when you start seeing that early morning, the brain's like, wow, it's time to wake up. So remember, we're tied to these things called circadian rhythms, right? They're like these 24-hour clocks, and a lot of our organs have their own circadian rhythms, right? And so for sleep, the moment that you are awake begins the next cycle. And so the other piece of that is keeping consistent awake and sleep times, even on weekends. Because if you drift, it's like, let's say that you stay up late on Friday and Saturday and you sleep in, it's like traveling to another time zone and then coming back. What you've done is you've just basically jet lagged yourself at home. And so we really need to stay, and this is honestly the hardest one for me is, that between, let's say 9 and 10 is trying to keep that my bedtime
yeah.
and then getting up, around 5:36, 6:30, that, just kind of keeping those time, whatever that works for you. But that would be those are two easy ones to think about. And they really have some big impact, right? Because that consistency and that light will really make the nighttime routine, your hygiene, even more effective. So then being careful of caffeine. So caffeine, blocks adenosine receptors. So I would not have coffee past noon. And I certainly wouldn't have more than probably 3 cups. And that's just because the amount of caffeine. And when you look at the data on how helpful caffeine and all the polyphenols and stuff that comes with coffee,
Yeah.
it's going to be in that 3 cup range. Now, what's later? Let's think about evening light, right? As the light goes down, there's a certain intensity. Dimming the lights, don't getting in front of bright lights, that will help tell the brain, oh wow, okay, the sun's going down. I need to start thinking. It reinforces the message I got this morning. And so that's the second piece. Another thing you can do is maybe do sauna or a hot shower, because what happens about 90 minutes before you go to bed, what happens is that causes the body's internal cooling system to start kicking on. And that cooling system, internal cooling system, will help you fall asleep as well. And so there's a couple of things there. You can also do meditations, you can do body scans. There's all sorts of things that you can do in order to help that. But honestly, the consistent sleep pattern, the morning light, and just really paying attention to your caffeine habit, those are going to be your biggest levers. And once you start doing that and paying attention to alcohol messes with your sleep. It's bad for your bones. There's nothing good about any amount of alcohol. So you can give up the alcohol, that's going to do you so good in so many ways. Because people are like, oh, I use alcohol to unwind, I use alcohol to sleep.
Right.
It actually really messes up your good quality deep sleep. And if you're using that as a crutch to unwind,
Yeah.
what we're doing here is there is a dependency issue developing. And so instead, what else can you do to de-stress? Maybe it's maybe a walk or gentle exercise, yoga, whatever works for you. Maybe it's listening to music, maybe it's coloring, maybe it's crocheting. I don't know, whatever works for you, reading. There's so many things that you can do. And so anyway, that would be how you need to look at is picture your sleep as being affected through the whole day. Like, what are my habits through the whole day that affect this nighttime sleep?
Well, let me ask you this with the circadian rhythm in the morning. So when you're saying first light to let
Yeah.
light into
Yep.
your eyes, do you need to
Yep.
be outside?
Yeah, preferably 10 to 15 minutes. If you can't, they do have, like if you're at a higher latitude in the United States, they do have lights that you could use, like a little sun lamp. But even if you just open up the windows and sit by that, like drink your coffee in the
Yeah.
morning, that's still better. And if you go outside, try not to use the sunglasses first thing in the morning, just because you just need that brain to get that message. And so it's ideal if you can go outside, but if you can't, at least sitting by a window with bright light. And if you get up early before, because it's getting darker earlier, well, hopefully what's that? I think Sunday's the last day. Now it's going to start getting longer days.
Yes.
Not that I'm counting or anything, but it's like, it's a topic of daily conversation. It's like, oh my goodness, it's so dark. Uh, and so it's just really doing what you can, but just knowing that the sooner you can get into that sunlight and for a period of 10 to 15 minutes, the better. Yeah.
Wonderful. And I know we're running out of time, but
Yeah.
we talk a little bit about food because
Yeah.
you talk a lot about food as
It's a
medicine.
lot of,
And I talk about it a lot, even though I don't tell people what to eat. I do believe that what you put in your mouth makes a big difference on the
yeah.
quality and health of your body.
Yeah.
And to be able to make good choices, the levers that you're talking about are important because it helps you make better choices when you've had sleep, when you're moving your body.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if we talk about food just a little bit and you wanted to start a habit,
Mm-hmm.
where would we start with that that would be little enough? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking, it doesn't matter. I mean, for me, I'm not uh, saying it needs to be plant-based, but
Mm-hmm.
we certainly need a lot of plants in our diet, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you start with somebody who just wanted to make some of those? Tell me what
Yeah.
you eat just a little bit.
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand. So when I speak of healing habits, I speak about more it's about metabolic health, right? And so I don't even say food, I just say blood sugar regulation, right? And
Wonderful.
when we think about our blood sugar regulation, what's gonna cause unhealthy blood sugar? Because there's so many people walking around insulin resistant, pre-diabetes, diabetes, and it's starting at a younger and younger age, which sets you up for so many other chronic diseases and really cutting your lifespan. And so when I think about that is how can I make you metabolically healthy? And so where I tell people is I'm always telling you to build muscle and I'm always telling you to improve your microbiome. So what food would allow us to do that is it's a higher protein, fiber rich food. So this typically is going to be beans, lentils, whole grains, those type of things, non-starchy vegetables. But I really like to help people if you're new to the fiber world and you try to throw in a bunch of fiber, you may find that your gut's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Because you're feeding those little gut microbiome, right? So they are chowing down on the fiber that you cannot digest yourself. So the microbiome is doing it for you. So that might be a little bit of a rude awakening. So instead, let's just gentle it. So the tiny healing habit that I would tell people is just add something that's high in protein and fiber on your plate, at least one serving a day, and just start right there. So this might be as simple as cooking some red lentils and maybe it's just an eighth of a cup, right? Or maybe it's, like maybe I don't want to add beans or lentils yet. Maybe it's just adding a serving of, cooked broccoli or Brussels sprouts or cauliflower rice, or maybe it's adding quinoa to something. Maybe it's switching out the donut for breakfast on the way to work with, a banana. Maybe it's because all of these foods are going to improve your gut microbiome, which decreases inflammation, which decreases your insulin resistance. Well, actually, with fiber, it also is more satiety, meaning that you're going to feel
Yeah.
fuller, right?
Very
So these
important.
are more lower calorie foods, so they stretch the stomach.
Mm.
They also actually activate the fiber, actually activates the GLP-1, right? And so your body makes GLP-1. The GLP-1 drugs actually amplify. So what happens is you eat, then you get a message from the GLP-1 later down in the colon saying, hey, we've eaten, we're full. Thank you. And that shuts down that mechanism in our brain. But we all know the modern world's hijacked our satiety and our hunger signals. Um, that's a whole nother 5 hour talk.
Right.
But that that alone is a fascinating topic. But that's where I would start is like, where can I add more fiber into my day?
Mm.
And so fiber and protein rich again is the whole grains and the beans and lentils. Beans and legumes are the one food associated with longevity around the world. So you're adding other great things with it. It's not just fiber and protein. You're adding some amazing other things. So again, I wouldn't start with like black beans. If beans are not part of your world right now, I would start with lentils. They're the most easy things. The more you cook something or blend something, the easier it's going to be to digest and just start building over time. Now, for women, I would love to see women hit 25 grams or 30 grams of protein a
Yeah.
day. And when you start thinking grams of protein versus calories, you're naturally going to start making some very different food choices,
That's true.
right? And so what happens is that you find that you get fuller faster, and that allows you'll find that your satiety and your hunger improves, or
Yeah.
where you come in touch with, like you mentioned, I think you did a podcast around the intuitive eating versus how you clarify it, which I really think it's important that we, like you mentioned, kind of get in touch with what is actual true hunger. Like, what does that even look like? What does that feel like? Because I don't think people know because they never allow themselves to get hungry.
Exactly.
And so anyway, I just did a paper or an article today on fasting. And is it actually fasting out actually helpful because of the lower calories, or is it something else at play?
Uh-huh.
And so it really is a
What
matter.
did you find?
Well, what no.
I'm very
Well, so
curious.
basically the gist of it is when you look at the data, it's what fasting does because you can take people fasting and they may or may not lose weight. What's happened is you're stretching out the time that the body can go from, from eating, so it goes from digesting to resting. And so what happens is the entire mechanism starts happening and your body's physiology starts changing as it starts moving from using up the food that you just consumed,
Yeah.
and now it's using up the fat and it's decreasing inflammation and it's cleaning up, right? So we start repairing things. You have to give that time. And so what they found is if you're metabolically healthy, the fasting isn't as helpful as someone who's already metabolically dysregulated, meaning they have diabetes and such. You will see those individuals actually lose weight. And so that's a fascinating way to approach it. It can be very helpful for some people. They seem to do really well, like kitchen is closed. Like it's a rule of the house. Like I'm done eating at 5 or 6 or whatever that might be. I
Mhm.
don't eat till 10 the next morning or whatever. That simple like that's just the way it is, and then they feel freer to eat during the day. Maybe it's just 2 meals, maybe it's 3 meals, but there's many ways to approach it. But that stretch where you're not always consuming something, and then I like to speak to people about also just, between meals, are you actually hungry? Because you just ate an hour ago. You're not truly hungry. There's something else going on. Now, the ghrelin, right, the hunger hormones may be triggering you to say, hey, I'm hungry. That's because you've been feeding him this whole time.
They're
I
trained.
think you're trained, right? And so, again, the circadian rhythm. So, if we start understanding, our bodies will adjust to, eating, and you're more insulin sensitive earlier in the day versus later in the day.
Uh-huh.
Really interesting studies showing that if you're eating the same calories and just shifting during the time from a higher calorie consumption in the morning to higher calorie consumption in the evening, these guys will same calories will gain weight. These guys will lose weight. And it's mind-boggling just because the hormonal shifts that are occurring, your insulin, different things. So and with menopause, with that drop in estrogen, you're becoming more insulin resistant. You're losing the muscle mass. That, the belly fat is absolutely not making up in your head. And some crazy symptoms that come with menopause. Menopause threw me off a cliff. And so I totally understand. I didn't understand, but 3 years ago, two
You
years
went
ago,
through it.
I was like, oh my God.
Uh-huh. Too.
I was like, well, this is very unpleasant. So you start diving into the science and you're like, wow, there's a great book called Estrogen Matters.
Uh-huh.
I would encourage anyone to listen to it, written by an oncologist, fascinating on the science and the politics around the whole WHI, and which
Yeah.
was the studies released back in 2002. I actually became so involved in this, just diving into the research. I spent a year really diving into the research and actually became menopause certified practitioner through the
Ah,
Menopause Society because I was like, this is too much. It's such an important piece. And I'm, I do all the lifestyle levers. I'm eating well, I'm exercising, I'm managing stress, I'm marking my sleep. But menopause still was like really quite cruel to me.
uh,
And I was like, I'm like, I think the universe is telling me that I need to share this story. And I'm very transparent. And so like I'll share the story if it will help someone get the help that they need and not feel ashamed because they feel like not doing something or people are telling you you're crazy
right.
because or whatever. I was like, no, 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 no. And I love it. I've been on stages with some men who felt like that that maybe just a certain way of eating was the way to go. Like maybe it's all plant-based, and people would ask me about menopause because they've heard me talk about it. And I would say hormone therapy actually can be quite helpful for a lot of women. And literally take the microphone and was like, well, you can have a little estrogen, but I wouldn't use it to, symptom resolution, which is what I'm telling patients. It's like a minimally symptom resolution. You can even go beyond that just for if you look at the data and the brain health, the bone health, the heart health. And I'm sitting here going, I'm surrounded by white older men
Yeah.
who have no idea, number one, what it's like to go through. I was like, you need to be quiet until you walk through this because this is ridiculous. And I get emotional. That is just so annoying to me. I was like, how dare you tell a woman just because you think that some religious belief in whatever this is way that eating should take care of everything, but it doesn't. It's a great lever, but it does not take care of everything. Estrogen disappearing just sometimes it throws, and I had been whole food plant-based for, let's see, when I was 53, that was probably at least 12 years.
Wow.
No meat, no dairy. I'm on my 14th year. And I had just ran a half marathon in Boston with my daughter, had PR'd it. Literally 2 weeks later, I could barely get out of a chair because of the joint discomfort that came with the menopause. I thought I was going nuts. I was like, what on
That's
earth is
what a lot of
going?
women think.
Oh my God. And I was like, what the? And so I just like I do, I just go full science nerd and what I learned was like, wow, the politics around that study and
Yes.
is disgusting. And anyway,
It's disgusting.
the estrogen matters book, guys, it's fascinating. I would encourage you. You'll probably get angry, just heads up, but it'll be okay. It's much more open now. There are people here who will help you.
Yeah, and so would you say overall you're more of a proponent for hormones?
Oh, 100%.
Oh,
I embraced it
yeah.
myself.
Do you
And
like
it
certain kind I mean, do you like, biological
yes.
hormones compared
So
to
that's a really
other
yeah, it's a really important topic. I do not like the word bioidentical in the sense of compounding because what you'll find is that you're not sure what they're using or how much they're getting, right? And it's not regulated. So I'm still a big fan of FDA regulated formulations because then you know what you're getting. Okay. So that's number one. Number two is transdermal estradiol because the transdermal estradiol actually bypasses the liver's first pass, metabolic pass, meaning decreases risk of stroke and clots and cardiac issues. So that takes care of that. And when I write a prescription for someone to pick up their local CVS or pharmacy, it is bioidentical, right? So it's the same estradiol that your ovaries make and the progesterone as well.
Oh,
And so, absolutely. So when it comes in the little capsule, that little progesterone, that micronized progesterone is just oral. So if you have a uterus and you're on estradiol, you must take your progesterone because estrogen tells things to grow. Progesterone says no. So just think of that.
yeah.
Estrogen says grow. They have to do that together. Progesterone also helps sleep. So it hits the GABA system in your brain. And so when you take it at night, it'll help calm you. It's a kind of an anti-anxiety. It'll help you sleep. And that's why so many women struggle with that middle of the morning wake up as perimenopause, menopause happens. So transdermal estradiol, it could be in a gel, it could be the patch, and then the oral. Now, some women obviously are not good candidates for hormone therapy. There's other things to consider, but there are formulations. For the majority of women, it's a very healthy option. But certainly speak to your doctor about it because everyone's going to be a little bit different. But I chose to, and I will tell you what, I feel amazing. And people go, well, when are you going to stop? As like when I'm dead, and they pull it out of my dead, cold, clutched hand.
So once you start taking it, you can just keep taking it.
From the data that we see right now, there's not really super good long-term data, especially on the formulations we have now. From what I can gather, and
Yeah.
I think it's going to be hard to say because that was a very expensive study. I don't know if we'll ever get that type of study again.
Yeah.
And so I think what we're going to find is observational data and looking at women maybe now in their 50s, like myself, who started in long-term data, what happens when I'm 80, 90. So yeah, nope, because I'm not going to go through that again. Are you kidding me?
Uh-huh.
No, 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 no.
I think it's great that you're telling this. You're a doctor and you're
Yeah.
also talking about balancing your hormones with hormones.
hmm hmm
And so I think everybody that's listening, it's always a big question.
Yeah.
And I could probably sit here and talk to you for another hour,
It was lovely. Thank
but
you.
I got places to go and people to see, and you
Oh,
help
yeah.
look good too. But otherwise, I could sit. I have so many more questions to ask you, but where can people find
Yeah.
you and
Yeah.
read your Substack
Yes,
and
ma'am.
okay, how?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. It was delightful. I love talking about this stuff. But you can find me at drmarbas.com, DRMARB as in boy AS.com has links to the Substack, but the Substack, you just go to substack.com and it's the Habit Healers. I also have another little tiny Substack. It's called the One Tiny Healing Habit. And the reason I started that is because I had people who would start because I like to go deep on subjects. Unfortunately, I sometimes get a little carried away with myself and I'll just talk about everything. They're like a little overwhelming, Dr. Marbas. I think I need to pull back a little bit. It was either time or price. So what I did was that now it's called the One Tiny Healing Habit, and it's one tiny healing habit over 5 healing habits, kind of the, stress and sleep and all those. And literally, it's less than 2 minutes to implement. And it gives you like 3 sentences on the science and a connect to an article on the Habit Healer Substack if you want to go deeper. That's literally it. And I'm about to start next year a little 3 minute to 5 minute meditation once a week, just to help people start setting intentions, helping kind of the auditory piece of it. And yeah, so, and then yeah, there's some really fun stuff I have. I'm going to have a little mini medical school with the habit healers. I'm going to be working on
Wow.
yeah, so I'm really excited about what's coming up next. I have so much fun and the community's great. I have about 20,000 people right now subscribe to the Substack and it's such a lovely community. So, yep.
Lovely. Well, I can see why. I can see why after talking to you. And unfortunately, well, maybe, who knows, maybe somebody can get in and still see you. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think just being able to listen to you and to read your material, I think there's so much to be gained. I think you're setting up something for the future for women and giving yourself as a role model to women who are coming into medicine and
Yeah.
lifestyle medicine. I mean, I think as a woman, that is what I need.
Mm.
And I think there's plenty of people that I work with that need it too. So, congratulations on creating a path.
Thank you.
And I hope there's many women doctors that do what you're doing. And I thank you so much for being on this podcast. And I know everybody will find one simple thing that they can change after listening to you. So,
I sure hope so. Thank you so much. That was very sweet. And thank you. I'm excited.
thank you, thank you, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yes.